Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. We've put up two more little clips of our visit to the Fairmont tomorrow. One is called Lions at the Table, and it's the lion pride having a feast, and really tells you that nature is red in tooth and claw. And then we've got another little video of our visit as well, so do take a look if you've got a chance. I thoroughly enjoyed moderating the following panel this morning. It was a financial services breakfast meeting with, it was sponsored by USAID, the East African Trade Hub, and Ken Invest. Put up an image of the program. Really very enjoyable it was too. Lots of interesting comments. KCB's Sam McCovey said over 70% of all our transactions are not done through the branch, which is pretty incredible. Lamine, who is the CEO of Standard Chartered and a friend, spoke of his sustainable finance initiative, and he's got lots of very interesting thoughts actually on ethics in particular. Macro thoughts, tail risk hedges sought in another dimension. If you go back 200 years to Thomas Tiggerson, head of cross-asset strategy at Skandinaviska and Skilda Banken in Stockholm, you'll find all the big banking crises, all the waves of companies that go belly up because they have too much debt. They don't happen when the interest rate is high. They happen when they cannot go any lower. It's an important point. Turkey's Borsa Istanbul 100 index plunged the most since 2013. Take a look at Holger's diagram. And Moody's has placed Turkey's Baa3 issue and bond ratings on review for downgrade. Home thoughts. It's enough for me to be sure that you and I exist at this moment. Gabriel, Garcia, Marquez. It is not true that people stop pursuing their dreams because they grow old. They grow old because they stop pursuing their dreams. What matters in life is not what happens to you, but what you remember and how you remember it. Powerful. My mind went to Lake Magadi, which is the southernmost lake in the Kenyan Rift Valley, lying in a catchment of faulted volcanic rocks north of Tanzania's Lake Natron. During the dry season, it is 80% covered by soda and is well known for its wading birds, including flamingos. Saline alkaline lake, approximately 100 square kilometers in size. It's pretty remarkable. Have a look at the Wikipedia explanation. And the reason my mind was triggered was that a lovely photograph was posted by M. Politza, amazing colors of Lake Magadi. And I'll put up a photograph that I took of the hot springs in Lake Magadi, where I swam a few times, very alkaline, you feel it on your skin. And it's a beautiful, remote place. I like this photograph by Margot Kiza, the view across Mombasa Harbour from the Tamarind Hotel. Mombasa is, of course, my hometown. The founding of Mombasa is associated with two rulers, one a Mikisi female and Shehe Mavita. And of course, it went through many different stories and twists and turns, the Portuguese, the British, Fort Jesus. I'll leave you with one last thought from Gabriel, Garcia, Marquez. All human beings have three lives: public, private, secret. I can't possibly tell you my secrets, can I? Political reflections. Donald Trump comes out to "We are the champions." Only his silhouette was seen at first. His wife, Melania Trump, delivered a most extraordinary speech, largely plagiarized from Michelle Obama. My husband, Barack. Oh wait, I meant Donald. Melania Trump's speech bears striking similarities to Michelle Obama's 2008 address. If you just look into it by words, you'll see that it's exactly the same. And then a very clever comment by somebody I follow on Twitter called Archer. I think whoever wrote Melania Trump's speech knew exactly what she was doing. She is busy laughing somewhere. I think that's probably correct. Freedom of navigation patrols carried out by foreign navies in the South China Sea could end in disaster, a senior Chinese admiral has said. When has freedom of navigation in the South China Sea ever been affected? It has not. Whether in the past or now and in the future, there won't be a problem as long as nobody plays tricks, he said. China is the biggest beneficiary of freedom of navigation in the South China Sea and won't let anybody damage it. But China consistently opposes so-called military freedom of navigation, which brings with it a military threat and which challenges and disrespects the international law of the sea, Sun said. This kind of military freedom of navigation is damaging to freedom of navigation in the South China Sea, and it could even play out in a disastrous way, he said, without elaborating. It's a very fraught situation, and one feels that the US is going to have to do more in order to push the Chinese back. China used its latest bomber, the H-6K, in recent patrol over Huangguan Island in the South China Sea. Now returning to Turkey, Pepe Escobar in his normal, inimitable self. What's clear is the coup was a Turk remix of the Three Stooges. I called it Inspector Clouseau. Erdogan called the coup a gift from God. God apparently uses FaceTime. It was via that iconic iPhone footage from an undisclosed location shown live on CNN Turk by a bewildered female anchor that Erdogan managed to call his legion of followers to hit the streets, unleash people power, and defeat the military faction that has taken over state TV and proclaimed to be in charge. Rule number one in a coup is to aim at and isolate the head of the snake, yet the wily Turkish snake in this case was nowhere to be seen. The head of the snake must have been 100% sure that to board his plane and stay on Turkish airspace was as safe as eating a baklava. What's even more startling is that the Gulf Stream managed to land in Istanbul in absolute safety in the early hours of Saturday morning, despite the prevailing notion that the airport was occupied by the rebels. That meant Erdogan controlled the skies and the game was over. History does move in mysterious ways. The no-fly zone dreamed by Erdogan for so long over Aleppo or the Syrian-Turkish border in the end materialized over his own capital. I concluded by saying Erdogan is doing a Donald Rumsfeld. Do you remember what he said, Rumsfeld? Go massive, sweep it all up, things related and not. I called it a Turkey of a coup attempt, saying that just a few short weeks ago, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, pronounced Erdogan, was cutting a swathe through Africa with something like a swagger, opening the largest Turkish embassy in Mogadishu. Turkey is a geopolitical linchpin state, a member of NATO, and a gendarme in a seriously hot neighborhood. Interestingly, in the run-up to the attempted coup, Erdogan had mended fences with the Russians whose plane they'd shot out of the sky not too long ago, Bibi Netanyahu, and even spoke of reconciling with Bashar al-Assad, whom Turkey had been plotting to overthrow for a number of years by greasing a bloody rebellion. The multi-front foreign policy volte-face was breathtaking in its speed and noteworthy. I think he had a premonition of what was coming, and in fact let it happen. With the AK party, the whole world hears Turkey's words. And then I said, therefore, the Inspector Clouseau-like Turkey coup attempt captured the world's attention from Mogadishu as far as the US. And then I quoted Virilio again because you'll remember Erdogan tweeted that his supporters should own the streets. He tweeted, the president and the government are on duty. Let us not leave the streets. I went back to Virilio. The revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack. In other words, a producer of speed. President Erdogan understood the need to own the street, and he quoted what must be his favorite poem. The mosques are our barracks, the domes are helmets, the minarets are bayonets, and the faithful are soldiers. US warns on Turkey's place in NATO as Erdogan cracks down. Tourism is expected to contract further, having contracted 23% year on year. Sky News tweeted an emergency landing for Boris Johnson on his first overseas trip as Foreign Secretary. Manuel Valls was booed at a memorial service to victims on the Promenade des Anglais. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro is at 110.67, dollar index 96.68, Japanese yen back above 106, the figure at 106.06. The pound up and down 131.90 right now. Aussie 0.7498, India rupee 67.155, South Korean won 1139.38, the Rial 325.34, Egyptian pound 8.8835, and the Rand's around the 14.30 level. It's firm. And given what's happened to the Aussie and the Kiwi, I think we're going to get a sell-off in the Rand at any moment. Dollar index, let me put up a one-year chart. I think it's pointed higher. I'm bullish about the dollar again. New Zealand dollar took a fearful battering overnight. I'll put up a one-year chart of that as well. Gold losing some vigor, $1,333. Let's see how it behaves here. Crude oil losing vigor as well. New York crude last trading at $45.67. Rio's airport is chaotic as security tightens before the Olympics. This is a report by Business. Angolan officials meet bond investors in London, Aberdeen says. Looking to raise money abroad to counter an economic slump. Finance Minister Armando Manuel, Minister of Petroleum Jose Maria Botelho de Vasconcelos, and officials from the central bank were meeting investors this week. The meetings come after the country's borrowing costs tumbled and a rebound of oil, and signs central banks and major economies will keep interest rates low, boosted demand for high-yielding debt. The yield on $1.5 billion of bonds due November 2025 peaked at have dropped 352 basis points from January 20th, last trading at 10.07%. It will contract this year, I'm afraid. South African all shares up 3.81% this year. Dollar Rand, 1420 is key resistance. It trades firm, but the complex around it is beginning to soften. Egyptian EGX30 is up 8.89% this year. Naira forwards volatility surge as Nigeria removes spread limit. Naira forwards rose to record highs and volatility surged after the central bank removed a limit on bid-offer spreads in the FX market, raising expectations the currency is set to extend declines as it trades more freely. 3-month non-deliverable forward contracts jumped 4.3% to a record 329.5 per dollar, while contracts maturing in a year rose to 366.5, also the highest level on a closing basis. And essentially everyone is expecting the central bank to let the currency slide a bit further. Equilibrium, in my view, is probably somewhere between 325 and 350. Nigeria's inflation rate rose to 16.5% in June, the highest level since at least 2007. Nigerian all shares up 0.34%. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 10.91%. Private credit in Sub-Saharan Africa increased by just 7% in the first 6 months of 2016, down from a 15% peak in 2014. Ethiopia says 11 security officers have been shot dead during recent unrest in the northwestern town of Gonda. There's been a series of these episodes and we should keep an eye on it. Japan Tobacco, the seller of Camel and Winston cigarettes outside the US, announced on Sunday it won a bid to buy 40% of the National Tobacco Enterprise Ethiopia from the Ethiopian government for a record $510 million. Moody's Investor Services spoke of Kenya's economic growth being driven by corporate investment and expansion. Forecast Kenya GDP will reach 5.7% in 2016 before rising to 5.9% in 2017. Kenyan court has charged 4 police officers with murder of rights lawyer. Nairobi all share down 5.72% year to date, closed at a 5.5-month low. NSE 20 down 12.02% this year, closed at a 51-month low. Right at the bottom of Rich Wrap-Ups is a link to any share that you want to look into at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Once again, thank you for stopping by.